Yvonne, thank you very much. So my name is Yvonne Rosenbaum-Afra. I'm the co-founder of Leaders for Climate Action in Turkey. For those of you who don't know what Leaders for Climate Action is, let me give you a couple of sentences of background. Leaders for Climate Action has been founded 3 years ago by a group of entrepreneurs in Berlin from the digital industry, because they thought there is so much talk about climate crisis, but not enough action done. So that's how Leaders for Climate Action was born. Why? Because we believe that if we can enable leaders and their companies to take climate action themselves and reduce their carbon footprint, we can actually transform the world a little bit at least. So the digital industry is our main target group. So the audience here is probably familiar with us. So we help you do your green pledge as a leader. You measure your footprint, and we help you to reduce it, and we do the same for the companies. By now we are operating in 43 countries and have more than 3,000 members. And that's all I want to say for now. I would like to hand over to our speakers, who are Cecile Duranton from Time for Planet and Marcus Hølland Eikeland from Katapult. Cecile, maybe you want to introduce yourself in a couple of sentences?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Ivan, for the introduction, and thank you for having me here. So I'm Cecile, I'm the managing director of Time for the Planet. And so I'm an agronomy engineer from my background, but over the years, I've been a business developer, and over the year, I've been going to climate through agriculture. And what Time for the Planet does, we are a non-profit citizen fund, and we finance innovations to tackle climate change in just one sentence, just so you know what we do. And I'll hand it over to Marcus, I guess, so he can introduce himself as well.
Thank you.
Okay, nice to meet you all, and thanks for the invitation. I'm Marcus Hølland. I'm a partner and managing director, program director here at Katapult. And Katapult is a early stage venture fund, impact investor, and we look for, well, 3 specific things. We look for amazing companies in the climate space, in the ocean space, and in the ag and food system space. So that's sort of our verticals, and we've been around since 2017, and we have 120 investments so far in our portfolio. So nice to be here, and looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much. So let me shoot with my first question then. How important do you think it is now to raise awareness for practical initiatives for climate change problems and climate tech solutions? And maybe you can also tell us a bit about what your organization's roles and actions are in this sector. Cecile, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, of course, raising awareness is important. I think on one side for a citizen, so they can actually understand what solution exists today, what's done in climate tech, because I think sometimes it's a bit hard for people to really relate to what we're doing in climate tech. And also, if they know about the solutions and understand them, it increases acceptability, it increases the chances that people are using them. So I think it's really important. And also, I think they can realize that through collective action, they can also participate to finance and promote solutions. So we had just before a speaker talking about how you can have investment as a person in that, and Time for the Planet, we are also doing that. So people can become shareholder from Time for the Planet and help investing. So I think it's really important to have this awareness from citizens and also from investors and public powers as well, because they will help to, you know, incentivize the sectors having more investment, but also in the term of politics and all of that, you need to have easier ways to invest in climate tech, for example, and actually to combine all of this, so the citizen movement on one side, and also investors, politics. If everyone works together, then it gets stronger. So it certainly is something that is very important. And so Time for the Planet, we don't really have like a direct action to raise awareness, but because we are a citizen movement, so which means that today we have more than 65,000 shareholders, for example. So, to have these people and to talk to them about our innovations, we have a process where they have to, at the end, to validate the innovations during a general meeting, so they get to learn about it. We also have a process of selection with collective intelligence. So even if we don't directly raise awareness around climate tech, because we involve so much people in our process, then they will get to learn more about it. So it's a way of, having people getting involved and understand what's going on, what kind of innovation are going on, and all of that. So that's about it for us.
Thank you. Marcus, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think awareness is definitely important, but I think what we're quite adamant about is that we move past awareness as well, because I think there's a lot of people creating awareness, but we need action. And like you said in the beginning in your introduction, Yvonne, we need entrepreneurs solving real problems, and so that's what we care deeply about in Katapult. And our vision as a venture firm is to catalyze or propel people, money, and resources into impact investing, so that we can back founder who's solving real problems and actually capture, in the case of climate, capture CO2 out of the atmosphere. That's the ultimate goal. That's what we need to do. And so awareness is well fine, but we need to move past it quickly. And I don't need to tell this audience that we're sort of running out of time. And luckily, we have all these governments now committing, at least on paper, to the Paris Agreement. So I'm quite keen on rolling out solutions that is able to capture. And I'm going back to the graph that Ørjan showed us earlier today as well. Like, if you look at a lot of these companies, it's a lot of blah blah blah, and if you look at the actual emissions that they're reducing, it's quite low. So we need to be more vigorous in terms of finding the ones that has the potential of actually taking out a lot of CO2. So that's my take on awareness.
So true. Awareness, and the question was really also focused on awareness for practical initiatives, as you say, because as you said also, we all need to take action now and not just raise awareness anymore. We're past that stage, I guess. So the second question would be, what do you think are the climate technology trends and perspectives on how the sector should evolve? And maybe if you have some, Marcus, from your portfolio, or Cecile, successful case studies, then please share with us.
If you look at, so let's think about climate. So if we look at climate or the CO2 emissions now, it's 72% is energy, and if you divide up energy, it's 2/3 are transport, electricity, heat, manufacturing, construction. So definitely, like, carbon capture, carbon storage, and energy and transportation are obviously some good examples. And I think like Ørjan also mentioned in the beginning, you want to look at, especially for venture firms like us, you want to look for exponential potential in technology. So using exponential technology to solve some of these problems. So solar is a good example. We have a lot of place on solar, marketplace solutions that combine solar tech with marketplace, or even the selling and distribution of energy, or clean energy. So I think, and there's lots around energy. There's companies like Braefoil and Gazelle, which is all about offshore wind. So that's a big part of our portfolio. We really see that offshore wind and improvements in the wind turbine sector can yield a lot of impact. There's stuff like in manufacturing and construction. Hyperion is a company which is using 3D printing to use less cement. So cement goes into every building is a huge contributor to emissions because it uses so much energy. So there's all these things that in our portfolio, which we think is interesting, but I think it's yeah, you need to look at ultimately, what is going to capture, and also looking at it from a value chain perspective. So if we have a company like that, in the construction business, can we do something where also invest in companies that might be a supplier or a customer to that company? And so looking really across our value chain, across our portfolio, and look for synergies between the companies, I think is also something we look at. So hopefully that was some insight. Maybe Cecile also has some really good takes on that, which trends are interesting to look at.
Yeah, sure. Well, I agree with you on the sectors like transport, energy, all of that is, of course, sectors today that need to be decarbonized, and there are more and more people who are willing to invest, investors, and even like bigger company, because they have net zero strategies, so they need actually to have the correct innovations to be able to reduce their impact as well. So we have more and more incentive in this, and also regulation are starting to have more regulation. So for example, in transport, we were talking about the impact of transport. So for the maritime sector, so all the containers and all of that, there are regulation coming in to reduce their impact. And for example, we have an innovation in this sector which is called Beyond the Sea, which is kite sails that will help reduce the fuel consumption of the ships. And we see a big interest from big companies in maritime transport because they know they have regulation coming in. It's the same also, so you were talking about heating production, but also cooling production is quite emitting today. And so basically there are regulations that are coming in because for the cooling system production, they use HFC gases, which are very powerful in terms of warming power. And there are regulations that will remove HFC gases very soon. So people are looking for new solutions, and we have an innovation that replaces this with water. So we remove the gases and we reduce the consumption as well, the energy consumption by 30% with this innovation. And we have seen, we have lots of companies who want to have this innovation implemented. We started with this company a few months ago, and we are already selling because companies are trying to reduce their impact when it comes to coal production. So we can see that there is at the same time investors, and some companies want to invest because they know they don't have the ways to do like themselves to finance innovation in their own labs or stuff like that. They cannot have their own researcher, so they need to have another company doing it for them. And at the same time, we have clients as well. So on both sides, there is lots of people who are working on that, and mostly because now we have net zero strategies and incentives in terms of politics as well.
Thank you. That's very interesting also to hear your cases from your portfolio. So, you were talking about all these industries who are trying to reduce the carbon footprint and correlate their current business models with climate action. And there is obviously many of them that are already in the forefront, which are fintech, insurtech, agritech, etc. What do you think, or how do you think climate action will affect and navigate the other sectors of the economy that are not so on the forefront right now? Cecile, would you like to start?
Well, I really think that step by step, you will have climate that will be a priority in all economic sectors. So it's starting with the biggest one, which have the most impact, of course, also because everyone is talking about them, so they have to move on, but also in other industry. And we see it, for example, in fashion, we see it in different cosmetics as well. So we see that there are more and more things where the production of a product or even to sell a service, they are starting to implement as well what's the actual impact of the product and the service. So I think, of course, the biggest sector will be the first one to implement strategies, but they will inspire all the sector to follow and to do the same when it comes to climate action. So I really think that's something that's going to be stronger and stronger with time. And also because the consumers as well are more and more pushing for that, because the more they get to see like other company doing something, so to see that agri-tech is going to do more, that in food we will have more talk about climate, they will get more and more awareness at the end of the day around climate, so they will want to buy products that have something around climate. So I really think that in all the sectors it will with time be stronger, and that's something that's unavoidable. And if a company wants to survive in the next 20 years, they will have to go through a climate strategy and have really show that they are doing something for that, because that's the demand. And I hope it will be for climate, but also for other sector as well, like biodiversity, ocean acidification, because we are talking about climate, but there are other problems. I'm pretty sure climate will have a huge impact on economy sectors. I hope other problems as well will have an impact, but it's a little bit, today it's not the case yet as much as climate. I think climate has the strong part of the talks in media and for everyone as well, which I'm fine with because I'm working in climate.
Thank you. Marcus, your thoughts?
Yeah, I can quickly build on that. So I think there's a lot of good points there. I think climate needs to be everyone's job. Like every single company should either pay if they're not contributing to the climate agenda in some way with their products or services. There should be a tax, so that it's a world collective of getting us back into shape. Because if you and we're investors, and if you consider risk, I mean, climate change is a huge risk to all businesses, to all life. So if we're not serious about removing carbon from the atmosphere as fast as humanly possible, imagine what's at stake. I mean, it's all our livelihoods basically, and so we can't afford. It's not like we can give everyone a pass. We all need to do it. So, and we should implement regulatory frameworks to make that happen, and we should have also markets so that it becomes a business opportunity for you to do the right thing, basically. So I think as people, as nations, we need to make that happen, and venture capital and impact investing plays a part in that, of course. But it needs to be a holistic sort of fight against climate change.
I totally agree. I do believe that green economy is a huge opportunity for everyone. So I'm totally in line with what you're saying. While we're talking about economy, let's move to investment. How do you think, Marcus, maybe you want to give this a go, and how do you think the interest for climate tech startups and technology is so inevitably strong and increasing every day? How do you think micro investing and investment in general could create more opportunities for all of us to become part of the climate action?
Yeah, I think it's the democratization of fighting the climate in these investment platforms. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's something that we should encourage. We should fund. We should back. I think the only thing we need to be a bit aware of is what we're promising back. I see a lot of these. There's a lot of these platforms where it says like, we'll take your money and we'll do some investments on your behalf. I think what we need to be a bit rigorous about is actually what we can promise in terms of an impact perspective. I think there needs to be accountability in these platforms to show what we're actually doing, and so that's something we spend a lot of time on here in Katapult. Is like the investments that we're doing. What is the impact that we can measure? And I'm not talking like just as a back of the napkin sort of kind of exercise, but what specifically in the products, what data can we pull and have the companies report back to us as an investor on a quarter by quarter basis in terms of the emissions that we are offsetting, or if it's plastic is in the ocean that we're taking out, or if it's like the circularity. So we need to be, I think in terms of these platforms, because I think these platforms are great, but we need to introduce accountability into the platforms as well, so it doesn't just become this hype around climate and startups and platforms and marketplaces and cool things, but actually we need to be quite vigorous about the footprint, like what are we leaving behind, and I think that if you do that in these types of platforms, I think the potential is just incredible. So yeah, I'm really for it and supportive of all kinds of these types of business models.
Marcus, out of interest, do you have any parameters in your company that you have in place that how you measure or how you audit your investments in that sense?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we spend 1 month with the companies as they come into our program. We do a 3-program sort of tire, and we spend an entire month actually on this. And so there's tons of workshops, but it's going down really defining their theory of change and taking that like 5 steps down to the point where we have the specific measurement parameters, what they're able to report back, and how often they're able to report it back. And so that's something that we're really excited about, because I think and that in itself actually creates business opportunities, because companies are really interested in buying these carbon offsets. So if you have a portfolio of companies where you can actually prove down to the the CO2 kilo that you have offset, I think there's a huge appetite for that now among so many actors. So I think but yeah, we need to introduce accountability into the system. I think it's super interesting.
Thank you. Cecile, can you tell us about your cases?
Yeah, of course. So of course I agree that there is huge opportunities and that we need to measure properly. Basically, I mean, Time for the Planet, we are also in this field of micro investing by people, so everyone can participate to that. And actually, so Nuno was telling just before in his presentation the amount of savings today which are just waiting to be invested, and that people are actually wanting to invest them in green, and the younger the more they want to invest them in green. So there is a huge opportunity, and I mean, Time for the Planet is a good example because we have raised 12 million and our model is with no return. So they don't have any financial return from their investment. What they get is a return on impact. And so I absolutely agree with you, Marcus. We need to have a proper way to measure the impact. And actually, that's quite interesting, because when we started Time for the Planet, we were thinking that we will find a measure, that a standard measure existed in investment, and that we could use it for Time for the Planet to measure the tons of CO2. But actually, no, there wasn't a standard measure. So what we did is we started in France. So we started to work with the French government, with different people in France as well, who are in the carbon market. And that now we are also working with internationally, so with as United Nations, for example, with Gold Standard, to actually build a global standard in investment, which we are calling climate dividend. And the goal is like 1 climate dividend is 1 ton of CO2 that is captured or reduced. And it's actually, you have a whole protocol. And so it's for investors. When they invest in a company, at the end of the year, they get their financial dividend if they have some, and they also get the climate dividend. So they have the actual impact of their investment, and they know exactly in terms of CO2, what's the impact of the investment. And the goal is really to have a global standard, so we can make sure how it's measured, by whom it's measured. We can compare it from one investment to another. Because one of the problems today, some funds have already this kind of measure, but they have each one their own methodology, each one their own protocol, and you cannot really compare them. So the goal is really to have a global standard. So that's something we have been working on for nearly 1 year now. And our goal is really to create an association. So that's what we are going to do right now. So it's not Time for the Planet itself. We were the creator, but the goal is to have something where you have everyone working together, not just one company doing their own measure, but really everyone that is concerned by the investment and the impact investment for climate can participate to the association, can be on the board of the association as well. So it's a collective work that we want to do. And I think that's really important, because when someone gives money for a project, after a while, if they don't actually have an idea of what's done, it's really complicated for them to get engaged, and then they just start to think that's not really relevant. So yeah,
that is super exciting to hear. When is it going to be finished? Do you have any outlook?
So yeah, so the association is being built right now, and it's already, so we already have the website, and the first climate dividend should be emitted at the end of this year. So it's really, really soon. So we have already other companies who are willing to participate to that. So it's really right now starting. And the platform, we have a first version of the platform, but we're making it better. So yeah, it's right now.
Maybe you can share the link with us. So I'm sorry, we have been too long, but it was very interesting to talk to you guys. Thank you so much, Cecile and Marcus, for your input and insights. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really nice.
Guys, I just didn't want to just run into it, but it was really interesting, and I see a lot of people still sticking in, and I also received a lot of great feedback from our link. So thank you for being with us. There were really interesting topics, and Cecile, we would be happy to share all the dividend measurements, because when we are talking about ecosystems, you need the same language. And I definitely feel all of you, because you talk about like some kind of social impact or serial entrepreneurship, and you go to different places in the same town even. I'm not talking about like France versus London or like Stockholm. It's not about that, but we need to develop those kind of things so we can measure things, or we can understand where we are at. And there is always a huge collaboration opportunity for all of us. So thanks for being with us today. Yvonne, thank you very much for the great panel. And Cecile, thank you very much too. And I'm going to catch up with Marcus later on. Thank you guys
very much.
Really looking forward to see you guys again.